and if
Yes.
you can also add your R or X if you don't want to be in a recorded breakout circle. And we've already sort of started the check-in, so I'm not sure how you want to handle that. Sally was going to do the.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I took somebody's job away. Let me hand it over to you.
To me?
Sally, yeah, I've started your check-in because it started in the pre-session, and I didn't realize that I was.
Oh, no, it was
So
wonderful.
you can finish. Ruth is next.
Oh, I am having tiny little crisis here, but Ruth, I just really like to hear what you have experienced this week with your Betty calls and progress you've made with the empathy circles.
Thank you. Yeah, I love the cat background, Sally. Yeah, giant cat. Yeah, I haven't really done much this week. I had a buddy call with Bill, which was great. We had a nice chat about sea life, as well as we practiced, the circle. Yeah, I was away last week when we did the role play, and I think I just spent all week trying to get my health back. I just felt a bit run down. But I will say, yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of normal empathy circle today without, all this sort of infighting between relatives. Stuff like that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to my empathy fix. Thank you.
Okay, so Dee, were you called on?
Yeah, Sally, I've already gone.
Okay, Jonathan?
Sally, thank you. Yes, I was called upon. Thank you. I had to turn my mic on.
Oh,
Sally, I called on everyone. I overstepped and was doing your function. So I'm sorry.
No, it was wonderful. I just have a problematic situation right here. We have no heat.
Sally's got power outage there where she lives, so she's just on batteries. So,
well, Sally, I'd like to add. I've already checked in, but I want to add something. That's okay if we have time.
Absolutely.
I participated in a circle with Jeremy with his job. He had asked for volunteers to help facilitate, and it was really a good experience. And I was surprised how quickly some people took to it. They got it, they understood it, and it was good. So your culture of empathy is spreading.
Thank you, Edwin.
And Jana has her hand up. I don't know if you see that, Sally. But
Jana, I don't remember hearing your voice. Do you have it?
I did just say that I'm happy to be here. I just arrived when I was. I want to add that Jennifer and I did a very nice buddy call, and it was really nice to get to know Jennifer a little bit. And also Larry and I have the ongoing empathy circle, the ethics and empathy circle on Sundays. And we just did honesty, and we're looking forward to generosity tomorrow. And that's really special. Thank you.
Yeah, I went to that, and thank you, Jenna. Okay, so I'm at this point, who's next in line? I'm gonna hand this.
Just to check in, were you there at that Kara at the Jonathan's? What do you want to report on that? So the situation is Jonathan, he has taken the training, not Jonathan, was it? Jeremy has taken the training before, and then he's working at DoorDash. I think it's a company that does deliveries.
Marketing.
Marketing. Oh, okay, marketing.
Yeah.
So if you want to say a little bit about, he put out a call for support, then just wonder if you want to share.
And so, yeah, Larry was there, and Alex was there, and Lynn's already said it. It was fantastic. It was fantastic to have a business culture where this was a norm, and they were using to figure out how they could be better in this area. Yeah, amazing. And it was immediately, people were like, I was surprised at how hard it was not to react. I was surprised at how well it felt immediately to reflect and not have to react as soon as I stepped into that role. And that was cool to experience. It was super fun.
Yeah, and I think the employees were virtual. I got the impression they did not work together. I mean, in a
They have
that
a
environment.
dual option. So that's part of their wellness program, is that they have both remote and in on-site. They have a combo deal. They require that you take wellness days. Required. No, they don't just offer you wellness days to take, they require it. What a cool company. And then they wanted to do empathy circle.
Okay,
Yes,
looks
please.
great. We have some people with their hands up. Jonathan, do you want to?
But, we just had BJ join us
Oh.
and she hasn't checked in yet.
Okay, do you want to just check in quickly? We've done check-ins. BJ, you're the last for check-ins. Just anything? How was the week in empathy?
Oh, greetings everyone. Hope everybody's doing well. The week was wonderful. I actually facilitated a workplace redress mediation and utilized empathy listening circles. And the EEO rep thought that there was no way we'd get a resolution, and we did. So, you know, like I said, I love empathy listening circles. We will go global. Thank you.
Thanks. Jonathan, back to you.
Yes, regarding the report that Kara was giving us on the Jeremy's empathy circle, could you explain, was there a bunch of virtual, how many people were present? How did they handle who was speaking and who was the audience? How large a group were impacted?
I think that was to you, Kara.
There were six facilitators, and each facilitator had 3 to 4 people in a room. So the 3 to 4 people were the team, and then we just facilitated it. Yeah, ran it like a normal circle.
DJ?
Yeah, so I beg your pardon, but we actually haven't done the check-ins with the participants present. So the trainers and the trainees, if there's time, are supposed to be able to do a check-in in front of the participants so we can go over those 3 questions. So the one question is about last week and the feedback, and then there's about the empathy circles and all of that. So I think what's happened is that the trainers and the trainees haven't really had an opportunity in front of the participants to check in. So I just thought I'd remind everybody about that, because I do think it's important for us to have cohesion.
Yeah, things got a little bollocked there. So I don't know. Do you want to check in like 30 seconds? We'll have more time for the feedback. So if you want to, shall we do that? You want to quickly 30 seconds?
Do it for me.
Okay.
I'm just pointing it out for the participant, that sometimes it's useful for them to hear the check-ins from the trainers and the trainees. It's for their purpose.
Right. Yeah. So I think we've sort of done the check-ins already. We'll kind of let it go. I think we'll just have more time for the feedback. We didn't do feedback last week, and we have some backed up feedback. So maybe we'll just jump into that. In terms of the check-in, sometimes we just do the participants in the breakout room. So I mean, in the main room here. So it got a little confused. So I think, but we'll just move on with the feedback. And I've got it here. So I'll just read a question, and then Bill and I are doing the feedback. So the first one is, if a speaker isn't saying very much, but still wants their turn, what do you do? Bill, do you want to take that?
Sure. And yeah, that's fine. Sometimes people have a little bit what I call performance anxiety. And so I said, we'll sit here with you for 5 minutes in silence if you want. And that actually usually breaks the sort of tension logjam, and they usually start speaking very soon. But even if they want to do that, that's fine.
Yeah, so if someone just wants to take their time, sit silently, I've heard people seen people do that. It's their 5 minutes, and they don't have to say anything if they don't want to. It's their time just to be seen. So the next question is, notice the tendency to, oh, was there?
Can I just chime in too?
Oh,
You don't have
okay.
to, the speaker doesn't have to take the whole 4, 5, 3 minutes or whatever. They can just speak until they say what they want.
Right. Yeah, they can say, I feel fully heard, then after 1 minute, and then move on too. Yeah. But they can also take the full 5 minutes and just, okay, we're going to just sit quietly too. So that's also an option. Notice a tendency for people to naturally piggyback off someone else's share, which is a very normal thing to do, and wonder if it would be participants were invited to share newly each round, and that's a whole other muscle, and that's one that's atrophied in most. Bill, you want to?
Sure. Part of the art of facilitating, at least I believe, is a light touch. So when people are going off, I always make the decision, if I intervene, is it worth it? Because that stops the dynamic, and I try to usually hold back a bit more, light touch, so people can say what they want, and we don't want to really direct them as to what subjects are approved or not, and just let them go with their process.
Yeah, I would second that too. It's the person's choice to follow up what somebody else said or come up with a new idea. So we don't want to control that and just leave it up to the speaker. The next question was empathy circles. Do I receive some kind of a certificate? Just quickly, yes. Everyone who took part and attended all 5 sessions, you get a certificate of completion. It just says that you attended all sessions, and we'll send that out, within a week or so. There'll be a folder on our on the website, and it'll have all the different certificates there saved as JPEGs or PDFs, and you can download those. And again, if you the first time you take it, you're a participant. And then the next 4 times you can be a trainee, and you'll get a certificate as a participant or a trainee. Or if you're a trainer, you'll get a certificate saying that you were a trainer too. So, so that's that one. Do you think there are some topics that empathy circles work well with? Do you think there are some topics empathy circles don't work so well with? Bill?
I find that empathy circles work well with a whole variety of topics. If you're looking for something to kind of draw people in, current events is always good, or some very broad themed, like empathy in the family or empathy political divides, something like that. Anything, and then each circle has a tendency, like you say, people piggyback, and it kind of goes where it goes. So it's fascinating to watch that. Edwin?
Yeah, it's I see it as just experimenting, seeing, try out different topics when you and see what sort of works for you. I think any topic can work. There's what's alive for you, as well as any topic is a good starting point. But a topic that addresses feelings, I think is really good, because that people share deeper feelings. So a topic that I like is share any feelings of concern, anxiety, or fear that you're dealing with in your life. So the more you can sort of speak to people, creating a topic that shares people's felt experience will allow the circle to go deeper, versus something that's sort of academic kind of questions that keeps people kind of in their, rational thoughts. So, but you can experiment, and somewhere on one of the websites, we have a whole list of different topics. I don't know, is there any other trainers, Anne, Linda, Larry, that have any topic comments?
Well, I've suggested to people when they're bringing their friends together, is a topic like what brings you joy, what makes you happy, and nobody can have an issue with that because it's a personal experience and it's positive. So,
Anne?
I think keeping the topic question if you phrase it as a question, having it so it's quite an open question, then it gives the flexibility for people to take it as they wish to, that's appropriate for them.
Larry?
Whatever's alive in you, I think that's the perfect topic. And just to be able to share that, you know, in a safe kind of family environment, that's a loving environment that's just going to reflect back what you said and not judge you or beat you up for what you're thinking, but just allowing you to be exactly as you are. I think it's a beautiful thing that the Empathy Circle offers to anyone who's willing to participate.
And if you're doing an empathy circle, like in a family, you don't want to have the first topic be, hey, what's the conflict we're dealing with? It's like, hey, what's something that's really positive that happened in the last week or in the last month in your life? So you want to start with sort of a positive emotional topic to develop trust in the process. Yeah, Wendy, real quick. Don't see you there.
I just want to shout out to Larry for introducing that concept of whatever is alive in me rather than whatever is alive for me. And I can see there's a real nuanced difference. So thank you, Larry, for that. And thank you, Jana, for pointing it out to me too. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. There's the next one is it possible to have an empathy circle without a facilitator? Bill?
Yeah, well, as Edmund said, when people know the process, then you really don't need a facilitator. Other than, I mean, there's a timer and things like that, but everybody knows the process. You don't have to introduce it. So that's, you know, it's good. And when that happens, it's very nice. It's a very relaxed circle. Edwin?
Yeah, and you can even get rid of, you know, sometimes after you've done it a while, people sort of integrate the timing too, and you can just even let go of the timing because people already know to keep the, you know, kind of a shared time. So really need a facilitator for new people in the beginning and for conflicts. Even if I'm with, you know, people who know the empathy circle, but there's a deep conflict, you know, then you definitely want to facilitator too, just because the energies you know, conflicted or high. Let's see, how much to be picky about listeners' reflection? They don't exactly say it perfectly. Bill, you want to?
Yeah, well, it's really the speaker is the expert on the speaker's speech. So if you're facilitating and the speaker seems to feel heard, then generally let it go. You know, if the speaker doesn't feel heard and the listener makes several attempts but can't seem to accurately reflect what the speaker's saying, then the facilitator might step in and kind of role model reflective listening. Edward?
Just that the speaker knows that they can say it again until they get heard to their satisfaction. You know, that's an important part. So if something's not being said, that sort of ties in with the next question here. How to handle when someone is reflecting while the speaker feels heard, but they feel no empathy. So that's a little more complicated. So do you want to give that a stab?
Sure. I mean, again, it's the speaker. We're for the time that the speaker's there, we're sort of just trying to understand and reflect and what they're going through. And I would just say if they're not feeling empathy, I would say stick with the process, just let it go. And I think that people will get an experience of empathy, you know, eventually. If not, then you could have like a buddy call later or something like that to kind of find out what the specific problem might be.
Anne?
I think that as facilitator, during the circle, if you sense that something's been missed that might well have been important to the speaker, when it's your turn in the round, you could actually then refer to that, which gives the original speaker an opportunity to again be affirmed that they have been heard and listened to. If you feel that you've picked up something that's been missed that's important. Yes. I find that sometimes quite useful.
Yeah, so it depends on what you mean by what the definition of empathy is. The definition I use is sensing into the experience of someone else. it's not, feeling kindness or generosity or joy or agreement. It's being present and just hearing the person for what's alive. And even in a conflict, right, there's underlying resentments perhaps, but so that's sort of the energy between people, but they are empathizing, and that they're sensing into and hearing the other person like we did last week. So if the speaker, it could be that they are feeling like anxiety, and they say, "Oh, I feel anxious," and the listener doesn't reflect that anxiety, then they're not feeling heard about that. But there's also sometimes, if the speaker has anxiety and you can sort of sense it, and you say, "Oh, I hear you're feeling anxious," that can sort of hit that felt experience. So as the speaker, if you're feeling, hey, there's no empathy here, you can just keep going until you feel heard to your satisfaction. So Kathy?
So I wanted to just ask a question about this if we have time.
Okay, yep, we got a little bit extra time because it's short.
So I find it very difficult to ask the speaker if they felt heard after somebody was just reflecting for them, because it's almost like telling the reflector you didn't do it right. So I have a real it's been very uncomfortable for me to do that. So I've relied on the speaker to make sure they're heard, and I might address it in one of the rounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've had that kind of I don't know what the word is, tension in myself.
Yeah, I do that too. If it's a new person, they're reflecting, they're just really kind of messing up, and you can see that the speaker is feeling, not really heard. I might say, "Did you feel heard?" I might ask the speaker, and then they'll say, "No, I didn't really feel heard." I said, "Just say it again till you feel heard to your satisfaction." And then if things really get bad, I mean, it's just like the person just can't reflect back at all. I might do a reflection for the speaker so that they feel heard, at least. But I would have to give it like 3 or 4 attempts before stepping in. So it gets a little bit more, complicated in that sense. But
I think that's one of the skills that's a very, very like one of the master skills that you have to
learn it as you go. The more you do it, the better you get. So let me try to keep us on time. How to handle this? Everybody here did that. Will there be a study design group formed to create the conflict resolution empathy class? Not at this point. Like right now, I'm working on the new nonprofit and the retreat center. So once that kind of gets up, we're going to, be setting up all kinds of programs. And one of them is going to be about getting curriculum developers and, really start working on some of those other curriculums for conflict, creating a, 6 or 8 week course on the restorative empathy circle. So it's just a matter of prioritizing. So, well, that's it. That's our questions. And I think we're on to, I think it was Jana was explaining. Is Jana here? Did she?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Mm-hmm.
And I get to describe our breakout rooms. So the breakout rooms will be an empathy circle, just a straight empathy circle without the how-to and without any role play challenges. This circle is for integrating our experiences and learnings and for feedback about the training. So we'd also like to hear what you will do next with empathy circle practice and training. And we will have a participant facilitate the circle in the breakout room. So just one participant will facilitate the whole breakout room. And we will post some topics here. Let me post the topics. Let me just click the click here. Here we go. There we go. Here are the topics. What are your most valuable learnings and benefits from doing this training? 2, what are your next steps with applying empathy circles and building a culture of empathy? Or whatever is alive for you or in you, as you prefer. And the turns will be 4 or 5 minutes. And we'll go until 15 minutes to the top of the hour so that we'll have a full 45 minutes for debriefing. And we'll get a 10-minute warning before the end. And thank you so much. It's really a joy. to be here for our last session and get started. So take it away, Edwin. With the breakout room.
Okay, we have 4 breakout circles. The first one, so this is an opportunity for the new participants to facilitate. All you're doing is timekeeping and being the first listener. So we have the first circle is with Alex, Bill, BJ, and Kara, and I'll be there too. So Alex, if you would facilitate that. The second one is with Jennifer, if you'd facilitate that, and that will be with Jonathan, Larry, and Wendy. And then the third one is with Dee, if you would facilitate that, give you a chance. And that is with Jana, Linda, Sally. And then the next one is with Ruth, if you would facilitate that one. Number 4, Kathy, DJ, and Ann. So here we go. We have about an hour and 15 minutes for this. So see you in the rooms. So this is it. Wendy's should be going into another room in a minute. There we go.
Cool. Hey everyone. Did you guys see the lamp disaster that happened behind me just before? The kittens jumped up there and pulled the entire lamp down, and it all happened on video, well, on Zoom. So I thought it would have been entertaining if anyone was watching. So we've got an hour and 15 minutes. We can either have 4 or 5 minute intervals. Does anyone have a particular preference for 4 or 5 minutes?
Since we're 5, I'd go with 4 minutes.
Okay, we'll go with 4 minutes. The topics are in the chat, but I can repost them again here in our group just so they're up there. And should I leave time for a debrief at the end within this group? No. Okay.
No, straight.
Great. Okay. So we're going to go until, well, we're all on different time zones. I'll let us know when we're getting towards the end. I'm going to be the first listener. So who wants to start speaking? Cara, you're on mute.
I know, I was thinking Bill's already unmuted, but
Oh.
now I'm unmuted too. So I can go first. All right.
Listening.
What are your most valuable learnings and benefits from doing this training? This one in particular, I was surprised at doing last week. I found that shocking and valuable.
Mm-hmm. So this particular round of training has been significant for you. And in particular, last week's experience really stood out as meaningful.
Yeah, and getting more opportunities to see the diversity of different facilitation has also been a win here.
Yeah, and part of what's made it good, meaningful, is that you've had a chance to see different ways of facilitating.
So valuable learning would be more self-reflection, always. And an awareness of how the process works, even if you're trying not to let it work.
Mm-hmm. So more self-reflection is something that comes up for you, and an awareness that even if you try and deviate from the process, it's still working in ways that maybe we might not always be aware of.
Yeah. So my next steps for empathy circles and building a culture of empathy is I have a new training program for my coaching business, and I am building an empathy session into the final week of the training.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of next steps, you are developing a new training session as part of your coaching business, and it has a focus on empathy.
Yeah, well, it's going to have a piece of empathy. There's the self-reflection tool that is empathy. I use a lot in what I do. So we're going to show how beneficial that can be in a business setting, which, just got practical experience doing it with Jeremy. And so I'm going to take that learning and push it forward.
Mm-hmm. So to take the learnings of empathy and push it forward in your coaching program, which is based on business models, you'll be integrating empathy in business throughout that program.
Yeah. Which is probably what's the most alive for me right now, is that training program, because it has taken over my month entirely.
Mm-hmm. So the training program has played a really big part in the last month, and that's what's most on your mind at the moment. Okay, Bill, would you listen to me?
Happily, sure.
I have a lot to say on this particular topic, but I'm going to start with my experience of facilitating the empathy circle for the SGM group that we did on Thursday.
Okay, so you have a lot to say about the topics, but you wanted to talk about a recent SGM facilitation you did on Thursday.
Yeah, and I think that it was a great experience, and based on one of the emails that was sent afterwards, I think my group had a positive experience with the empathy circle, but it was quite challenging for a few different reasons.
Okay, so you got good feedback about it, thought it went, overall it was beneficial, but there were I hear some concerns.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges relating to that particular group is that the participants felt strongly about that workplace not serving them well, and felt some levels of distress around the topic based on their recent experiences.
So what you picked up from the participants in that they felt that the workplace wasn't serving them well in certain aspects. And then they had a little bit of trepidation about talking about it openly.
Yeah, a number of people unexpectedly said that they were on the verge of leaving the workplace. And this kind of was a bit unexpected to hear them all disclosing this to each other. And that some of them felt that the empathy circle activity was a veiled attempt at trying to do well-being in the workplace, and they felt a little bit resentful about it.
So in the empathy circle, a few employees, I guess a surprising number, talked about their plans to leave, or tentative plans to leave, and they felt that the empathy circle practice, or the attempt, was, you said, a veiled attempt to sort of, I think, paper over things.
Yes, and I also had in the group 2 people for whom English wasn't their first language, and I could sense that the task was raising some anxieties for them, because they were trying very hard to do it in perfect English, and I think that can raise anxiety for a non-English speaker sometimes.
Yeah, so there were also some people for whom English was not their first language, and so that presented some communication challenges and also a raising of stress.
Yeah, and so I was surprised when I received one of the emails saying that one of the participants wants to become a facilitator, because I thought, wow, I'm happy that they had a good experience. And also, I think this empathy circle, rather than generate a lot of empathy, kind of generated stress for some of the participants, and also perhaps generated a sense of resentment towards the organization. So I left thinking, God, I hope this empathy circle hasn't undone the whole organization. But one of the participants was really interested in taking the actual process further, which is really reassuring.
Yeah. So upon experiencing and leaving the circle, you were really concerned about the level of stress and dissension that arose. You were concerned that using the empathy circle and bringing forward these things out into the open might further create more dissension. But you were very surprised. There was one participant who actually wanted to become an empathy circle facilitator. So you're seeing that the actual reaction was more nuanced than you originally thought.
Yes, thank you, Bill. I feel fully heard.
Okay. All right, I'll talk to BJ.
Okay,
Okay, great. Thanks, BJ. Yeah, thinking about Alex's experience. So there is that aspect that when you start to discuss things and you invite people to be authentic, it exposes things that sometimes are, people are just kind of not talking about. I'll stop there.
I think what I heard you say is that regarding what Alex experienced on last week for that company was that you feel that sometimes when people start to express things, that these are typically things that they've been wanting to discuss but not discussing.
Right, but bringing in the open, like if you're planning to leave the company, that has sort of real life and political implications if you're talking about that. It sounds like the company knew that there was some dissatisfaction, so so it was interesting to see how the structure kind of held together through this. I'll stop there.
I think what I heard you say is that the company realized that there was an issue with the staff not being satisfied with the work environment.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, they brought in empathy listening circles as an opportunity to just try something maybe that they haven't tried before. And sometimes politics can or cannot be involved. However, the outcome was that some people were happy, some people were not.
Yeah, I think as they, as they reflect, I think that they would be more satisfied. That would be my best guess. Yeah, and it's important to understand when there's that level of stress and dissension that, as Edwin says, that this is a basic practice. That there's a difference, sometimes a fine line, between empathy circle, some people feel will solve their problems, which sometimes it will, just doing that. But rather, I think I would say that empathy circles create the basis of communication, trusting communication, from which you then can deal with the particulars of the problem.
I think what I heard you say is that with regarding empathy listening circles in the workplace, once there's an opportunity to create trust within the working environment, it can enhance the entire work environment and the relationship that all employees have within that corporation as an opportunity to just try something different.
Yeah, and then the other part is that it's a first step. I've seen tremendous transformations happen in the empathy circle, but sometimes when there's a conflict that's really raw or intense, you need to basically have subsequent circles, or there are other steps that need to be taken to address the problem.
Yeah, I think what I heard you said is that when it comes to empathy listening circles is a first step.
Yeah.
And it can be seen as, or you have seen it become transformative and can transform that environment. However, it's intense, but it does and can bring about change in a positive manner.
Yeah, and you may need to create several steps, like several circles, and that's my time. Thanks, BJ. I feel fully heard.
Okay. Edwin, will you be my?
Yep, listening.
Okay. So, what are the most valuable learning and benefits from doing the training? For me, there are several benefits, and what comes to mind as a value is that just the ongoing process, that it's a never-ending ongoing process. And as far as benefits go, of course, it has helped me in my work environment as a mediator, as an internal HR consultant. However, there are so many areas and facets where there's room for improvement, like in schools and in police departments and places that have not even thought about utilizing. So when I saw that email regarding that workplace environment, I'll stop there.
Oh, okay. So in terms of the learnings, there's a lot of learnings that are there. One is the empathy is an ongoing sort of a process, and you see that it can be applied to many different situations, schools, workplaces, and other places. And there's something about when you saw an email, there was something about the email.
Yeah, I want to say the experience that Alex had with that corporation. I think that all companies should do that, whether they're having issues with their staff or not.
Oh, so the Alex's experience is all companies should be using this practice, whether you got a conflict or not.
Yes, and I think for HR directors, it could really help them ease their load and their burden regarding EEO filings and things like that, if they were to incorporate empathy listening circles.
And HR directors could get a lot of benefits because it would help with their something EEO. I'm not quite sure what that is, but help with their filings.
When an employee has a dispute at a company or corporation, they can file what is called EEO.
Oh, okay. So that you see, it would be helpful for dealing with conflicts that have been filed as EEOs.
Absolutely. So my next step, what I can say is right now I was selected to be in the City of Garland Leadership Program.
So you're just talking about your next steps with the City of Garland leadership program?
Right. And within our group, this is a 9-month program. And within the group, we have decided to do a community service project for the entire City of Garland.
Mm-hmm. So your leadership group is going to do this city service program.
The City of Garland, we have a service project.
So it's actually just a service project that you're going to be doing.
Right. And I am leading the Health and Wellness Committee. So what I have decided to do is to go into the high schools. And what we're going to do is offer empathy listening circles to the high schoolers, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders.
Wow. Yeah. So you're taking the role you're going to do is take the empathy circles into the schools, into the 9th, 10th, 11th graders.
Yes, as a co-facilitator for the Health and Wellness Committee, because our group is called Health and Wellness. So it's health and wellness within the schools.
So it's about Health and Wellness Committee, and that's the topic, that's the category is going to come under fostering health and wellness.
Right, and that will be empathy listening circles so that they can feel heard.
Yeah, so it's like that's for the students, the young people, to feel heard.
Yes, and I know that Bill has some experience with facilitating empathy listening circles in schools, so I will definitely do an outreach to Bill.
And you're gonna be, Bill's doing empathy in the schools work, so you're gonna outreach to him, connect with him about it.
Yes, so also, as you know, I always talk about empathy listening circles within the police departments. So that will be one thing that I still say is a next step.
So you're talking about the next steps. You got an empathy in the schools project you're working on, and also interested in empathy with the police.
Yes, so that I'll leave that there. I feel heard.
Okay, great. Kara?
I'm listening.
Yeah, I'm excited about BJ's empathy in the schools, but I know if she sets her mind to it, she's going to really do a great job at it. I'm always so impressed with BJ's enthusiasm and energy and insight and support for empathy circles.
I hear that you're really excited for what BJ's doing in Garland, and you know that anything she sets her mind to, she always shows up and brings the best to it.
Yeah, and what both Bill and BJ were saying about empathy and organization. So we're talking about, Alex's organization, and this is, works for any organization, is that, if there's already tensions and stresses and so forth, when you do the first empathy circle, it's a bit like there's an, unrepressed, there's a volcano, so you're opening the channel for the stuff to come out. So it can be a lot can come up, a lot of frustrations and stuff can come out at that point.
I hear that, speaking specifically to Alex's situation, but really to any organization in general, when you bring empathy in and there is tension, it has a way of bubbling up and coming out right away.
Yeah, there's sort of a purging phase, right? It's like all this stuff comes out, and that's what I always say whatever you want, name call, whatever. We're not here to suppress it. But once it gets heard, that frustration, that anxiety, once it gets heard, it starts transforming it. But you got to kind of have space for that to happen.
So I hear that's why the whole reason that the speaker can say, they can curse, they can yell, they can say whatever it is that they need to say, because that's part of the purging process, so that they can move to what's next.
And then the other thing is for a company to not wait until things are so built up, but to start maybe way down upstream, I guess, when people are first getting started in the company, they have empathy circles to say, hey, what's going well with you? What are you really enjoying here? What's your vision for the company? And so you're having positive topics to start with, and you're kind of building that container and that container is everyone sort of learning and trusting the process, right? That's creating a bit of helping build that container we talked about last week.
So I hear that you recognize that companies that do that early on, before there's real problems, when there's just the murmur of problems, it establishes that sort of foundational trust in the process so that it's something they can snowball with and continue on.
Yeah, and also when you're kind of doing that purging, you're also having an added stress of people learning the process too. So you have the purging plus the stress of a couple rounds. So you have double sort of stress. And so you want to sort of break that up to make it, again, it's that container, right? If you had if everybody's already familiar with the practice, then you're sort of already got a leg up when you're starting to deal with the conflict.
So I hear back to the container, it's that the first time through, the first couple of time throughs, a lot tends to come up because you're still learning and you're figuring out the process, and so you're learning a new process as well as exposing some of your feelings out authentically and upright, and that causes extra tension early on.
It's more the stress of learning a new process. That's the other stress, and
stress of learning a new process and then being authentic about how you're feeling.
Yeah, I feel hurt.
All right, I will speak to Alex. We'll just go round and round in a circle.
Listening.
So I was surprised to hear that you found negative people in yours. I did notice that people were cautious on how they phrased things, especially when it came to work specific. My group tended to then move on to like, what do we love about life? But that I was surprised when I heard that was your experience.
So you're reflecting on some of the things that I had said during my turn and noticing that you felt surprised at some of the content that came out in the group that I was facilitating about negative experiences.
But I think sort of to Bill and Edwin's and even BJ's points that that's not an uncommon first step. It's that where the stuff, I mean, that's it, even if it was lip service for wellness, it forced wellness to the forefront.
So you're saying in that example, even if it was lip service to wellness, at least wellness was being discussed.
Yeah. So I'm pretty impressed with a company that would even put that out there. Most companies know that there is absolutely grumblings and rumblings under the surface because nobody's ever always happy. So to put yourself in a spot where you're like, okay, just say it and you're safe to say it.
So it's not uncommon for people to feel some levels of dissatisfaction with their workplace, and sometimes companies are aware that that happens at any level in any case. But for you, it was a good indication of a good company that was willing to open up this process and have some of those grievances spoken about.
I mean, I think that's how this culture of empathy perpetuates and propagates is through that exact situation. People are upset. Let's talk about it.
And for you, that's how empathy grows. It's when people are upset, giving them a space to discuss that.
Without solutions. And I think that's the magic of my big lesson, I guess, take away from this entire round, what this whole 6 weeks was, it really not having to come up with solutions, allowing people a safe space to just speak. I mean, the solutions almost magically appear. It's incredible.
So when we don't respond to people with solutions, the solutions themselves can kind of organically manifest just based on the process and the way it works.
Yeah, I say a lot that I believe in people because I believe they are experts in their own life. They're the only ones who's been doing it as long as they have. And when you give them the space to be that expert and hear themselves, it's like I mean, you can watch, it's magic. You watch it and they're like, oh, I heard that come out of my mouth. What if I did something different?
So when we give people the opportunity to talk through their own dilemmas, they're often reminded of the fact that they are the own experts in their own life and can internally come up with the solutions that they might need in.
And being a giant nerd, I've fallen down a neuroplasticity and epigenetics rabbit hole recently in my work. And the empathy stuff fits in with it. It literally changes the way your brain is programmed.
And you went down a rabbit hole around epigenetics and empathy and neuroplasticity. And you were surprised, or maybe not so surprised, to find out that empathy totally fits in those dimensions as well. Okay. Brenda, will you listen to me, please?
Yes.
I really value everyone's contributions on my reflections so far. And maybe I'll just add one or two other things related to that came up for me afterwards.
I think what I heard you say, you values everyone's contribution to the empathy listening circles that were held last week at that corporation, and that you have some other things that you'd like to discuss and talk about. Yeah, and
some of the participants were saying things like, well, will the company ever know about this? Or I really hope that they take these lessons from what we're saying today and do something about it. And in some ways, I felt those questions were directed towards me. However, more out of a curiosity sense rather than any accusatory or anxious kind of thoughts that they wanted to share.
I think what I heard you say is that they were wondering whether or not the process would be private and confidential, or if it would be something that would be shared with the company or the corporation. And they maybe felt that you were or were not a person that would relay information back to the company or the corporation about the empathy listener circle.
Yeah, but it was actually less about confidentiality and more about wanting the company to get the message. So they said things like, well, we hope that the company acts on the things that we've said today. But of course, I'm not going to tell the company what was said in my empathy circle. So there really is no way for the company to know about what came up unless the participants themselves bring it up with the company.
Okay, so what I heard you say was less about confidentiality and more about the employees wanting to make sure that the company knew how they felt and what their feelings and thoughts were about the workplace.
Yeah, and I did feel a bit uncomfortable during the final debrief because the sense that I was getting, or the meaning that I was making from what was said in the final debrief, and this could just totally be because I'd just been in that circle. I mean, I might have had a very narrow frame on it, but the sense that I got was like, we've done well-being now. Everyone go away and you're well. And we've ticked our well-being box. And based on what everyone had said in my circle, I kind of felt a bit worried for the participants.
Okay, so I think what I heard you say is that you felt a certain way for the participants based on how the empathy circle was going, their thoughts and their feelings and the things that they said. They just kind of wanted to make sure that it got across to the company or the corporation. But you felt a little uncomfortable in your spirit because of the information that you were being given. That may or may not be shared.
Well, yeah, and I noticed that discomfort during the debrief when the meaning that I was making from the debrief was the company saying, we've done well-being now, go off and be well. We've done it.
Okay, so I think what I heard you say is during the debrief you were uncomfortable because the company felt like, okay, we've done this empathy listening circles, now go back to work.
Yeah, basically. And whether or not that's true or whether or not that's based on the past 30 minutes that I'd had with these people saying, this is exactly what's going to happen, and then it seemed to happen, it made me kind of concerned on the part of the participants. But I mean, really, I don't work for that company. I don't know these people. I'm not going to know these people or work for this company. So there's a very healthy and normal boundaried sense of detachment. But I was kind of like, oh, this is tricky for these people that work in this company.
Okay, so I think what I heard you say twice is that during the debrief you were a little uncomfortable, and what the participants in the empathy listening circle suggested or stated might happen actually happened. Mm-hmm. And whether it was a lack of empathy or sympathy on part of the company or the corporations, what they suggested, what they said was going to happen actually happened, and you witnessed that, and you felt a certain way for the participants.
Yeah, thank you, Brenda. I feel fully heard.
Okay, Bill, will you be my listener?
Sure, yes.
Okay, I want to talk about what's alive for me right now. So this is February Black History Month, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is February Black History Month.
Yeah, and so I'm a member of a group called Dallas Area Paralegal Association because I'm a paralegal.
Okay, and you're a member of the Dallas Area Paralegals.
Yes, I've been a member for over 20 years. I've been a member of the Dallas Area Paralegal Association, and this is the first year that they've ever celebrated Black History Month.
So you've been a member of this organization for 20 years, and they're just recently coming awake to the fact that this is Black History Month.
Yes, last night, the Paralegal Association has vendors. These are people who participate that give them business, or they get business from the Paralegal Association, because the paralegal work at all of these different law firms.
Right. So you were talking about the paralegal vendors, or people who are clients or have business dealings working at law firms.
Yes. So I just really want to shout out to U.S. Legal Support for supporting Black paralegals in Dallas-Fort Worth area and having an awesome vendor event for Black History Month.
So, yeah, so you really wanted to give a shout out to, and I probably get the title wrong, U.S. Dallas Paralegal Association. close, but correct me. But for really, reaching out, including the vendors, and really doing a good job of addressing the Black History Month.
U.S. Legal Support is a vendor.
Okay, U.S. Legal Support, that's a vendor.
Who sponsored the paralegal event last night.
Okay, so the vendor sponsored the paralegal event. I see.
And I often think that when it comes to all work environments, okay, diversity, equity, and inclusion it has been incorporated into a lot of companies, right?
Okay, so diversity, equity, and inclusion has been, incorporated into a lot of corporate cultures.
Yes, and I think that if there were empathy listening circles in all of these environments and all these workplaces in HR, there would be no need for diversity, equity, and inclusion.
So you're saying that if they had practiced empathy circles, there wouldn't need for these specialized programs.
Okay, if empathy listening circles were incorporated into HR environments.
Okay, so you want empathy circles incorporated into HR environments.
If they were incorporated into HR environments.
Okay, if they were.
There would be no need for diversity, equity, and inclusion.
There would be no need for diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yes, because believe it or not, for some Black people, diversity, equity, and inclusion leave some Black people walking away feeling worse than they did when they started.
Yeah, and so some of these programs for diversity, equity, inclusion leave African American people feeling, or Black people feeling worse than when it started.
Some African American people feeling a little bit different than when it first started.
Yeah, so it can have the opposite effect for some African American people.
Yes, not all, but in the long run, I just think that with Black History Month, even the city of Garland has started to do more. And I've been living in Garland for 25 years. So time is a good thing.
Yeah, so you're seeing progress. You lived in Garland for 25 years, and so you're seeing that they're doing more for Black History Month than they did before. So you see a progression. Time is a good thing.
Yes, and I think every culture should be valued, not just Blacks, Asian, Indians, everybody. I mean, all cultures should be valued. But look at in the state of Texas, what Greg Abbott is doing. No more diversity, equity, and inclusion at universities in Texas. How sad.
Yeah. So you're feeling that every culture has value and should be celebrated. Asian Americans and Latina, several, and that. And you're also talking about the crackdown by the state government on college courses talking about equity, inclusion, and also multiculturalism.
I feel heard.
Okay, not quite, but I'll try if you have any corrections.
We're good.
Okay, all right. All right, Kara?
I'm listening.
Right. So I'm really excited about what BJ is doing, because that is my thing, is empathy in schools. I'll stop there.
I hear you're super excited what BJ's doing, because that's 100% your jam, empathy in schools.
Right. And I'll be happy to help and support her in any way. I put my email in. We can just talk by email or just have another thing, or if she wants to come to my empathy in schools thing or send somebody to that, that's fine. And then the other thing I put in was a document where I did research on empathy in schools. I'll stop there. It's a lot.
So I heard that you put into the comments all of your contact information so that she can reach out to you however makes sense to her. Right. And that you also put a link for the research in the empathy schools. So you have both the Zoom course that's posted as well as a research program that's posted. Yeah,
well, this is a document, fairly rough, but basically it makes two, assertions. One, that empathic listening or empathy or social emotional learning has positive outcomes for students. I cite a research document and then also adoption by a major institution such as the California Department of Education. I'll stop there.
So the first So it makes 2 points. And the first one is that empathy in schools is incredibly impactful for children. It cites a couple of sources, such as the state of California.
Right. And then the next assertion I made is that the empathy circle is an excellent tool for developing oral language, which helps struggling readers because if you can't decode, you don't get the complexity of the written word. However, if you can speak and listen, you do get that. So you have intellectual development without having to know the fundamentals of reading. So when you get those, your intellectual development is up to snuff.
So I hear there's two factors. One is the social emotional aspect. Sorry for the background noise. And the second is how it actually helps with reading, that you legitimately, even without training any reading techniques, you're teaching the brain how to learn and understand, which then applies to their reading.
Right, and being a special education teacher, there are low-level readers that we got a lot, also had a low level of oral language development.
And then special ed, your specialty, it's very common for them to have the low emotional as well as the low reading, and this impacts both.
Right. And then the next challenge that you'll have is how to institute it. You're not going to sit down, 30 kindergartners for 2 hours and expect to have,
You're just never going to sit down a room full of kindergartners for 2 hours.
Right.
Ever is what I heard there.
Right. So what I've done is that I've broken it up, and there are several ways of like you can train the teachers, which would be very much like the course we're taking now, for adults. But implementing in the classroom, sometimes you have to take several steps or piggyback on various things that they're already doing in the classroom.
So I heard that when it comes to instituting it, to actually applying it in a classroom, there's a couple of great steps that you've discovered. One is educating the teachers in a similar situation to this, and then the other option is like baby steps or toddler steps, where you piggyback it on stuff they're already doing and just give little bits at a time.
Yeah, and I see my time is up, so thank you. I feel fully heard.
Edwin, will you be my listener?
Listening.
Okay. Wow, there was so much good stuff in that last round. I'm going to need just a second to talk out loud and have you reflect so I can collect my thoughts.
Yeah, you just need a little bit of time to collect your thoughts because there was so much good stuff in this last round.
So to BJ's point with the BIPOC community and Black History Month, until she said it, I didn't make the connection on empathy and how well it works within that space. One of my clients does big work in that department. And oh my God, yes. Like, what a perfect tool to heal all cultures. Please show up, shut up, and participate.
So you hadn't thought about it, but just the role of empathy in DEI work, and that it's like, yeah, this works. Just shut up and do an empathy circle.
Show up. Let's do this together. Yeah. And then in the schools, I mean, obviously you're never going to sit down a room full of kindergartners for 2 hours, but I never even would have considered piggybacking it on things that people are already doing, which I think is really accessible.
So you're thinking about the empathy in kindergarten that you're not going to get the kids to do that 2-hour circle, but it could be built in with other sort of programs.
Yeah, and that then gets me thinking, because I do leadership development. So same thing, if you're developing leaders, it's super easy to develop leaders at a C-suite or above because they have lots of times for lots of meetings. But at operations, they're like kindergartners. You're not going to sit them down for 2 hours ever.
So the C-suite executives, we're going to have time for doing some empathic listening or empathy circles, but the operations, there's a lot of stress for time. They're not going to be able to do 2 hours.
Yeah. So now my mind is racing on. I knew I wanted to add it into my coursework as a bonus thing, but now I'm like, how else can I fit it in there? Like, reflect that back to me. What did you hear?
Yeah, so you're really thinking of how you can build it into your leadership work, that kind of the active listening. So you hadn't really thought of it so much, but now you're really starting to think about this and just trying to come up with ideas of how to do that.
And it's thanks to the empathy circle, hearing it said multiple times and hearing the thoughts that allows those connections, right? And you choose to reflect first rather than react, which changes your brain pathways.
Yeah, so it's being here in the circle and hearing these ideas and being able to get heard about it has actually kind of opened up some maybe creative ideas for you, yeah.
So I feel like Larry Love has coined this phrase, but I love empathy circles.
So Larry has a copyright on trademark on it, but you love empathy circles.
Yeah. And I don't know that I have anything else to say. I think I feel fully heard. My mind is now racing and I'm like, okay, as soon as this is done, I'm going to pull up my work and start.
Yeah, your mind is just racing. Got a lot of ideas going. You want to get to your work and just start working on this.
I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Okay, great. Speak to Alex.
Listening.
Yeah, so I was thinking in terms of a company, like the empathy center has been very sort of loosely organized, but now because of this retreat center, I got to get really formal, setting up a formal nonprofit. So I am bringing empathy circles as a core foundational practice into it.
Because of the retreat that has kind of all of a sudden come onto your plate, it's accelerated and deepened the need to be thinking strategically and in a structured way about empathy circles, or about empathy in the workplace. And empathy circles have formed a part of that right from the beginning.
Yeah, so the first thing we've been doing is holding these visioning empathy circles for how to create the retreat center. So we put it out to the community. We just started with the empathy community. I mean, the community in Santa Barbara. So we had neighbors coming into empathy circles, and now we're putting it out to the empathy community. So from the very ground up, we're starting with this practice and teaching people how to use it.
So you're making it available to the communities that might be involved in numerous ways with the project. And it's important to you to embed empathy into the way that the organization starts from the very beginning.
And it's what I'm thinking in terms of the company that you were working with, right? If they had started way back at the beginning, all these processes would have been in place, and they might have headed off a lot of the conflict that's bubbling up now, or kind of frustrations.
Yeah, and it's a contrasting example because when empathy is embedded right from the beginning, it can heat off some of the other challenges or frustrations when empathy is brought in much later down the line.
And for this center, we'd like to have different departments, like an empathy in schools department, and form a team that could be funded and get donors for that. So for Bill and Brenda, or somebody just, I think Anne had dropped out. Let me move her to. You were with Ruth, Anne?
Yeah, hi, can you put me back? Sorry.
Yeah. So no problem. Let's see. Yeah, so yeah, lost my train of thought.
I can
there.
reflect back if
Okay.
you want. So your aim is to have different departments, including a department for empathy in schools, where it would be part of the work that department does is to seek grants and projects.
Yeah. So we're trying to get, start with these visioning circles and then move into these projects, and then have someone who's like a leader for the team leader for that, actually try to get them a paid position, that they organize the the project and then get volunteers, but try to get, paid positions for the teams. We really need, people to be able to make a living off of this. So.
Yeah, so it's important to you that as part of the organization, people are compensated and paid for their time and can make a living from the work that they're doing. And with the paid position, that paid position would then be responsible for recruiting volunteers into that department.
Yeah, so I hope you all will come to those circles. We're holding them on Fridays, and I think we're going to be starting to do them on Saturdays in this time slot in a couple of weeks, just to come start brainstorming ideas. We have a couple of people going to be putting together aggregating all the ideas. Linda and Kathy are going to start working on that. So think of other project areas, like empathy in business, right? And we get a team lead for that, and then we get, as with this organization, I think we'll be able to get donors, that'll give money to sort of pay for departments like, projects like that. So we can be sort of a focal point for it, as well as have online and in-person sort of workshops and trainings. And so a lot to organize here, but it's all starting with the empathy circle, with the visioning circles.
Mm-hmm. So the visioning circles, which are run as an empathy circle, are a really core and integrated part of how you want the whole organization to run. And as you start to plan out what this organization might like to look like, you can imagine different departments that form part of the core of the way that the organization is run. And another example might be empathy in business. And then you anticipate that organizations or individuals or donors would become interested in funding these departments, and because of its direct relevance to the work that they're doing. The circles are probably going to be run on Saturdays, and you'd love more people to be invested in the idea and to be participating as they can.
Good listener, good memory. And also I'll say that I do see that I think that empathy circles are sort of an alternative to DEI and SEL that can actually bring conservatives and liberals together. It's like both sides don't feel like they're being heard by the other, but if we can bring them into a circle where they feel like they're heard, I think we can bridge the divides, like bridge the divides in school boards and all that. Instead of having these sort of shouting matches, small groups, people really just listening, using the empathy circle, I think can really bridge the political divide. And that's like another whole project group too, we could form.
So another whole project or department group could be looking at the way that empathy is a core component of reorienting the work that DEI departments do along more egalitarian kind of open ways. And as you envision this particular empathy organization, you can imagine that empathy will be really effective in initiating some of those ideas.
Yep, I feel fully heard. I think that must be my time too.
Yeah, sorry, I stopped showing the time because I thought it might have been distracting, but I can go back to that if it goes on too long. Bill, will you be my listener?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, I had seen Edwin's email about the visioning circles, and it's something that I'm really interested and curious about and genuinely want to join.
So you saw Edwin's email about the visioning circles, and it's something that really piques your interest and you want to join.
Yeah, and I think that weaving the fabric of empathy into the core components of any NGO model is an alternative and an emergent way of working.
So, you think that incorporating, I'm sorry, I'm a bit distracted, into business would be a really good emergent way to get it, really adopted and to spread the practice.
Yeah, and I think it's probably an uncommon way of working, and it's also an emerging way of working. And NGOs that adopt this practice from the outset kind of position themselves really well to ensure that it's really integrated in terms of communication practice across teams.
Yeah, so you're saying that this is an emergent practice of this whole concept, both the empathy circle, but also broader, I think, empathy, social, emotional, communication skills, things like that, and NGOs that incorporate that into their formation, strongly then reinforce it in their day-to-day workings.
Yeah, I think it's like a refreshing kind of idea. And I also think it can be really tricky to not allow hierarchies to develop. I think that's a really intentional organizational decision that people have to make. And it can be a really nice idea. And sometimes hierarchy is important for getting decisions done. And people assuming roles of power is sometimes needed as well.
Yeah, so you think that it's a really excellent idea, but there is some sort of nuance and challenges in the sense that there's really no hierarchy in an empathy circle, but there are hierarchies in business, and sometimes leaders have to assert their authority in order to get something specifically done. So you have to kind of balance those two aspects.
Yeah, and I really like a phrase by an author. Her name is Adrienne Marie Brown, and she wrote a book called Emergent Strategy. And if I had to recommend one resource to Edwin to guide this development in practice, I would say like there's no better tool than this particular book called Emergent Strategy.
So you're talking about this book called Emergent Strategies by Anna Marie Brown, or maybe I got that wrong. And I know Brown is the last name. And so you think that that's an excellent book as a reference for what Edwin is doing and for trying to create.
Yeah, and one of the phrases that she has is inch wide, mile deep, as opposed to mile wide, inch deep.
So she has inch wide, mile deep, as opposed to the usual mile wide, inch deep.
Yeah, and she's referring to the way that many NGOs and businesses and organizations and self-employed businesses tend to want to spread themselves out and spread out their vision and spread out their platform. But that tends to result in a kind of surface level or not very deep engagement with people and communities.
So she's talking about the usual mile wide, inch deep, which is what kind of a metaphor for what companies try to do and try to spread widely at the beginning and things like that. But that it's not very deep. Things aren't reinforced very deeply. There's not a lot of deep connection.
Yes, exactly. And so the alternative of inch wide, mile deep, I think is really meaningful in generating long-lasting connections that can be sustained over time, and choosing areas of focus that generate and feed into these cultures of connection, I think is a really strategic decision.
So even though the spread might go slowly in the opposite, model, inch wide, mile deep, the depth of those communications pays dividends over time in the amount of communication effectiveness people have, sense of community, and shared purpose.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. I feel fully heard.
Okay. Talk to BJ.
Yes.
Great. Yeah, so to, a couple of things here peeking. So one of the things, you're going to be doing this with high school students. So they're fairly sophisticated. So, almost an adult. I'll stop there.
The empathy listening circles that I'll be facilitating with your help in a couple of months with teenagers who listening skills are interesting.
Right. Well, they're fairly sophisticated. But one of the reasons, so one of the adaptations that I've suggested is right from like standard learning goals that certainly the California Department of Education, but many other departments, and they call it literary analysis. I'll stop there.
Okay, I think what I heard you say is that one of the standard learning goals are called literary analysis.
Right. And so all teachers are reading some sort of book, whether it be a textbook or a novel with the class. So that's an excellent way to target the level of vocabulary and language that students have. So for instance, you could take a kindergarten class that's reading Dr. Seuss, like Sneetches on the Beaches, which is about racism. And you could ask the kids, how do the Sneetches feel? How do the characters feel? That does two things. It starts to develop that skill, but it also reduces stress because they don't have to talk about themselves. Sometimes when kids are in stressful situations, you remember the kids who've been abused, they use a sock puppet and they can tell what happens to the sock puppet, but they can't talk about what happens to themselves. Well, by using these characters, students can start to explore in a safe way, what's going on, the different layers that a character might be feeling. Sorry, that's a lot.
I think what I heard you say is that all teachers normally have a book that they're reading, and that one of the things that you were saying that one example would be the book by Dr. Seuss that talks about racism. And for the students, if they were to visualize one of the characters and to discuss that character, it might ease their feelings of feeling stressed if they were to utilize or visualize that character instead of what they're feeling, I think is what I heard you say.
Yeah, so instead of having to relate a personal experience, which might make them feel vulnerable, they could take the experience of the character and refer to that. Yeah.
Yes, refer to the character instead of the actual.
Right. Yeah. And so and another one, and I have examples of this. Sorry, I have a lot. So it's like balled out of my head, and when you open the gate, watch out.
I think what I heard you say is that there are a lot of files downloading right now.
Yeah, right, that's true. Yeah, and another one, like for instance, for a more sophisticated group, I used a example from a Navajo poet, Shanto Bigay, beautiful artist and poet. And so he talks about, for instance, seeing his mother's lace, which he sees as the aftermath of a snowstorm on the desert where there's just these little filigrees of snow and ice, and he calls it mother's lace. And that would be a way. And how does he feel? How does the author feel about that? What's happening, and that creates insight. And then I'm done. Thanks.
Okay, you were referring to the poet Navajo, the Navajo poet book, Salvador Bruno.
The author is, I'm sorry. The author's name is Shanto Bigay.
Shante Bigay.
Yeah.
Regarding the mother's lace, and referring that and seeing that as a metaphor.
Right. Thanks. I feel fully heard, PJ.
Okay. Kara, will you be my listener?
I am listening.
Okay. As we were sitting here talking, I was just thinking about dollar signs and diversity, equity, inclusion in the workplace, and I see myself getting a contract for $1 million. Are you in?
Yes. Sorry. What I heard.
Okay. I'm sorry we pulled you out of the room.
No problem. That's
Edwin,
what I'm here for.
But who was it?
D dropped
D.
out. I saw it. She hasn't come back.
And then it's 4 people showing unassigned. When I pulled up the room.
Oh, unassigned. That's our room that we're in, the main room.
And I couldn't see your name, so I didn't know where to go.
Oh yeah, I did move you. I don't know. So did you want to join?
Jana jerked you out.
No, did you want to join another group? We only got about.
No,
Okay,
we're
good,
fine.
good.
We were just concerned about her.
Yeah, I've been keeping an eye out. She hasn't come back, so I don't know.
Yeah, she froze and then it went away, and that was it.
And we don't know whether she lost us because she froze or if she lost us because she was upset.
Was she the one with the internet, or was that you, Linda?
No, I don't have internet problem. She wasn't upset, but she was anxious about something else that she had to do today.
Okay.
And so she talked a little bit about that. And she was upset that she couldn't be mindful in this spot because she was thinking about whatever it was.
Okay. But
She
you're
was
good here
she
you're just here for another 15
We're
minutes,
okay.
the three of you. Are you
Yeah, we're okay.
good? Okay.
we're okay.
I'll
We
head
don't need
back.
you anymore. We don't
Okay,
need
get
you
rid
anymore.
of me. Okay.
Or does it start at the top?
Yes, and with leadership, it can be defined based on your experiences or your skills, or I'm just wondering about that.
You're wondering definitions for leadership. Is it skill-based? Is it project-based? Is it results-based?
Yes, and when you're in a leadership program, I often wonder, should you be getting any feedback, or do you just continue to do what you do and never get feedback? So is feedback required when you're in a leadership program?
Your question, how about feedback? Like you're going along and doing your thing, but you're not really getting any feedback on whether it's working. So you just keep going forward, or should feedback be a part of that?
Yes, so it's a learning experience. It's a learning experience. But back to diversity, equity, and inclusion within the workplace. I love, love, love empathy listening circles.
So the leadership experience is quite a learning experience and bringing up lots of questions for you. But then back to DE&I and empathy circles, and you just love, love, love empathy circles.
Yes, and I am super excited about Edwin's project in San Bernardino, and I'm glad that they're going to change the time so that I can participate at a time that works best for my schedule.
Yes, and you're super excited about what Edwin's doing over in Santa Barbara, and you are even more excited because you get to actually participate since there's going to be an opening that it fits into your schedule.
Yes, because I looked at the place online and I'm thinking, oh my God, I could write my book in that room right over there.
Because immediately looking at the site, you're like, oh yeah, I could do this thing here. That would be great for this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, the video online is nice. So I'm super excited about that program and everything that's coming together for that.
So you love the video online and you're really excited for everything that's coming together.
Yeah. And another thing I really love about empathy listening circles is that you always learn something new about the people that you're in the room with.
And one of the things you love about empathy circles is how much you learn about the people in there. You always come away with something new about the people there.
Yeah, and I think for each of us, when it's something that we're passionate about, our files start to download and we're all, you know what I mean? We're just like all over the place with the thoughts.
And in reference to Bill, yeah, all of us, as we get excited about something, all of those files have to download and process, and we kind of end up all over the place.
I feel heard.
All right, I will speak to who hasn't listened. Alex, have you talked recently? Let's talk to Alex.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, yes, I'm 100% down for the $1 million contract. Let's make DE&I and empathy life. Yes.
What you're saying is that you've already spent $1 million and you don't mind doing the work around empathy and DEI as a part of that $1 million contract.
I'm ready for a $1 million contract to do DE&I and empathy.
You're ready for it.
Yes. I probably have spent maybe not $1 million, but a lot on empathy and things of that nature. But I'm ready to turn it around and start trying to put it back.
You'd like to replenish what you've already spent on empathy and this kind of work.
Yeah. And then I want to talk a little we're closing soon. Distractions. BJ brought leadership up, and already that's my jam. So now my brain is whirling, kind of like Bill when we start talking about doing education in school.
Yeah, so BJ's mention of leadership kind of makes your brain start to whir a lot in the same way that it did for Bill when he was talking about empathy in schools.
Yeah. So I want to address a couple of the questions that she brought up because I have answers and I might as well share them, or at least my opinions. I guess it starts with, I'm going to share my BS, my belief systems. You may choose if they work for you or not.
Yeah, so you want to share some of your belief systems that relate to BJ's questions because you feel like you've got some knowledge on this area.
So when I do a course, my beginning course is an empowerment course because I think all leadership starts with self and empowerment, which is kind of a bottom up situation, but it's really more a whole existence process.
So part of the work that you do, you like to start with empowerment because that's a really meaningful and important framework upon which to build any of the rest of the learning.
Yeah. And while I know that every single person's experience is unique and individual, and that is the diversity that makes life the rainbow that it is, also we all kind of go through some pretty standard similar processes.
So you know that obviously everyone is different and individuals are all different to each other, but part of what you've noticed is that there are some really common themes.
So one of the ways I like to empower leaders is I point out that being in leadership and being successful in any business that you want is as simple as growing up and making tea.
Let me see if I got this. So you speak to many leaders and you like to say or remind them that being in leadership is as simple as growing up and making tea.
Yeah, simple's not easy. Caveat, just like recording. But it really is that simple. If you have grown up, you have experienced what it is to be at an operations level, like a toddler learning how to use the nuts and bolts. You've experienced what it is to be in management, being independent but responsible. That's like being a child, right? And then adulthood is just like leadership, where there's lots of expectations and very little training.
So it's important not to conflate simple and easy because they're very different things. But there's an analogy that you like to use, which is related to growing up and making tea. And there are different stages of growing up, which can translate directly onto the leadership process and practice, ultimately culminating in being an adult where you have a lot of responsibilities and pretty much no training.
And tea, I mean, we've all made tea, and there's lots of, I think, steps and tools and things that skills that go into making tea. And it's a process, so anything could go wrong at any time. But also we have a mindset that, well, it's just tea, and if something goes wrong, I'll fix it, which is leadership mindset.
So the analogy here goes towards the process of cooking dinner. And as people cook dinner, there are a million things that could go wrong. Unexpected things might happen. Things might get in the way. Something might interrupt the process. But what enables us to keep going is that we often think that it's just dinner. It's just one meal. So what's the worst that can really happen if I stuff up this one meal? No worries. Edwin, will you be my listener?
Listening.
I will have finish my last segment by talking about what I've got out of the training. And I think that I've got a huge amount out of this training. I am actually really surprised at what I've got out of it.
So you want to talk about what you got out of the training, and it's a huge amount, and there's a real surprise that you got so much out of it.
Yeah, and I initially was a bit reluctant to join the training because my schedule is so overloaded and I feel in general really overwhelmed with the amount of work and study that I have to do. And so sometimes when I commit myself to do something else, I feel a bit resentful about that extra commitment because it eats into my time for doing other things that I really need to do.
Yeah, you have a lot to do. If you take on another project, you start feeling resentful about that other project, and because it's eating into your time for everything else.
Yes, and so I initially thought that I might be sitting down on Saturdays at 1 p.m. and going like, all right, I've just got to get through the next 3 hours and let's get this over and done with. And here's this thing that I've committed to. And why did I do that again when I always say I'm going to take on my stuff?
Yeah, so you're anticipating, oh, you're going to have all that resentment. Why am I doing this? I got this commitment, I got to do it. And so, yeah, you'd be frustrated.
Yeah, but actually the total opposite has happened. And I have really looked forward to this time. And I had to run some errands this morning, and I noticed that I was like, I'm really looking forward to 1 o'clock because I feel kind of disconnected in this country. So I was like, well, I've only got half an hour left of feeling disconnected because I'll be connected with some people.
Wow. Yeah. So it's the exact opposite had happened. Instead of being frustrated, you're like really looking forward to it. And even you're out doing errands and you're like looking forward to coming and connecting, and because you feel some alienation, disconnection in the country. And this is a place where you feel connected and belong.
Yes, that's right. And I also was, so there's like 2 levels of things that have happened. One is the one that I just said, which is that it's really nice to connect and I enjoy the space, and I notice a real shift in my mood from before and after, and my feelings of connectedness. So that's the first level of things that I've got out of it.
So one of the first thing you've gotten out of it is just a shift in your mood, really a feeling of connectedness.
Yeah, and actually, as I heard you say that, I think that there's 3 levels. So the second level is that I really feel like I've learned a lot about empathy. In that, for me, this last 6 weeks has been not like how to facilitate empathy circles, although that's a byproduct. But really, if I had to retitle this training for me, what it was for me, it was like 6 weeks of what is your relationship to empathy? That's what I would call it.
Yeah, so this is more than just a empathy circle practice. What you would call it is like your relationship with empathy.
Yeah, and so I've really learned a lot about my relationship with empathy, like what it sounds like, where it is, and certainly where it isn't, and what I think empathy does for me and does for others that I'm in connection with.
So you really got a lot of insight into what empathy is, what it isn't, and how it sort of relates to your relationships with other people, maybe how it plays a role or doesn't in those relationships.
Yeah, and the third level of what I've got out of this is that I'm a structured person, and I think I function really well in structure. And so this kind of feels like such a good safety net for me of like, well, if I'm struggling to find empathy or I'm struggling to extend empathy, I've always got the empathy circle and the format of that to come back to. And that is just such a valuable thing. And it really, honestly, the effect that it's had on me is to take the pressure off of like, I have to be really good at empathy because of my job and these expectations that are on me all the time. And now I just kind of like feel like, oh, well, I've got empathy circles. So yeah, I'll always have some access to empathy wherever I need to along the way.
Yeah, so you're a very structured person, and what you really appreciated the empathy circle is there's a structure there, so you can always call on that structure wherever you are. You won't kind of be lost or floundering. It's like can't come back to that structure, and you just really appreciate having that structure to fall back on.
Yeah, thank you, Edwin. I feel fully heard.
Okay, wow, that's beautiful. That's a great testimonial to the process. So thanks for that. So we only have like about a minute before we go back. So maybe about 30 seconds. So I don't know if there's any comments or anything anybody wants to say before we go back.
I'd like to say something.
Yeah.
I want to thank everybody for sharing, and Kara, thank you for sharing that about leadership, because I just think that I'm not alone. I'm not alone, and I'm a pretty good listener, but by the same token, there's always room for improvement. And secondly, Alex, that clock, that time up there, I love it. How can I get that? Can you send me a link? I love that. And Edwin, I really appreciate everything that you're doing, and I'm looking forward to being a part. Who knew when I took the facilitator training that I would still be connected, 2 years later? So I really appreciate that. And I think that when you're looking for cohorts and you're, people looking for their team or people looking for their people, I think empathy listening circles, we're all each other's people, if that makes sense. So
very
I'll
much so. Well, everybody's going to be coming back in. We lost Bill. I probably had some internet connection or something. So, oh, there he is. Yay. Coming in just in time. So everybody will be back in 17 seconds. So nobody wants to leave their group yet. Hey, Bill.
Hey,
You okay? You had some internet problems or something? Or?
yeah, I don't quite understand it, but seems to be working now.
Okay, great.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Just in time for your part.
I know, I was thinking about
I was
that.
thinking, oh, I'm gonna have to take over here.
All right. Okay. Okay, training session scripts. Okay, sorry for the delay. I'm having a little problem with my computer connection, but that should be fixed. And okay, so good, and I'm not muted. So one of the things we wanted to review in this time is that at the beginning we referred to a culture of empathy, and we talked about certain, mutuality, empathy, authenticity, compassion or care, some of those things. And so I wanted to, not everybody has to respond, but I wanted for people to think about when people demonstrated some of these core values, that it's not, the technique is great. As Larry says, love empathy circles, and I do. But it, in a greater sense, it creates the culture of empathy. Those values must be expressed. So I'm just going to call on people who feel that they have experienced, either from the trainers, the trainees, or other participants, example of some of these core values. Again, they're empathy, mutuality, openness, and care. We have about 15 minutes for this. So 5 people, 3 minutes each, or something like that. And so I just wanted people to reflect on that, because if you're going to build a culture of empathy, it has to broaden out. And one more thing I'll say about that is that people said, this is great in the circle, and I'm looking to incorporate it in my life. And so people who have, done this for a while, do find a change taking place. And I've heard the same sort of things. So that's the sort of insight we're looking for. But in a specific example, somebody showed care when they did this, or some mutuality, something like that. So I've said enough, and I would like you all to say something brilliant. No pressure.
Dee has her hand up.
And I see, wait a minute, I'll just move. Dee, I saw your hand first. Yes, Dee. Thank you so much.
Sure. So we just had an excellent example in the breakout room. My computer went offline and finally came back on. And I think it was Linda who said, Dee, I hope everything's okay. I hope we didn't offend you. We knew you were a little stressed out, and we're glad to see you back. And that helped. That helped me, feel a little bit more calm. And, I'm feeling kind of flustered because, the computer was out. And I was the facilitator too. So I was like, oh, come on. So they carried on without me and then welcomed me back into the circle. So I'm really grateful for that.
Thanks, Dee. That was a great contribution. Sally, I see your hand.
Yeah, I was in the group with Dee, and of course we were worried when she dropped off, and I don't know, it just caused us a lot of pain and worry. And then we spent a lot of time, which I would put in the definition of care, and reaching out to Edwin, figuring out what had happened to Dee, and is she okay? And so anyway, not soon after, Dee did show up, and after she had gotten her computer up and running, and we did one more empathy circle. So, well, anyway, and so care came up as just really a huge part of that whole experience.
Thank you, Sally. Jennifer.
Yeah, it's just fresh on my mind. We had Jonathan expressing a great deal of care and empathy in our breakout room when we were talking about a friend of his that recently entered into hospice care. And that led to a very heartfelt conversation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I don't see. Wendy, thank you. And then Ruth, gotcha.
Well, there's so many examples, it's hard to start, but one of the qualities that I feel is important is humor. And there's been so much humor here and there and everywhere. You know, my buddy call with Sally, I haven't laughed so much for quite a while. And, you know, especially when we were doing the role play last week, you know, the giggles, the smiles, etc. A lot of humor, patience, kindness, calmness. I get so much calmness as we enter more into the empathy circle. And here's Larry coming back, and I get so much calmness from Larry and various other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Ruth?
Yeah, openness I felt was really present in our group. I was able to say, oh, yeah, I've got nothing to say, brilliant to say at the check-in, and I'm really nervous about checking in. You know, so it was just, yeah, being able to say that and get away with it, really, to be honest, and have it land well.
Great. Any other comments? Linda.
When you said that about the openness, and we really were concerned, Dee, that we had done something, but we're glad you're back. But we were talking about when Dee left, we started just having a conversation, recognizing not to, appreciating not to interrupt people. So that was good. But we got to talking about holistic medicine. And I was telling them some medical issues, or the test results are saying, you know, you have these issues, and I'm telling the doctor, I feel fine. I don't know what you're talking about. And at first I didn't want to tell them what those two issues were. And then I did. It just, you know, yeah, I just felt comfortable. Like, I can say this, I can, tell them. And so that's new for me. I'm a private person, so that's new for me, but I just felt it was okay.
Great. Thanks, Linda. Kathy.
Yes. So I was sharing earlier in the pre-call that the first time I did empathy circles, which is almost 2 years ago now, the values part that we had to get ready for the first one, I took very seriously. And I've been working with values ever since. And one of the values I chose back then was presence. And I just want to read the definition. To be there for another in such a way that through your own self-knowledge and inner wisdom, they are able to perceive themselves with increased clarity. So I'll just say it again. To be there for another in such a way that through your own self-knowledge and inner wisdom, they're able to perceive themselves with increased clarity. So I just love that. And I think that's present in the circles.
Great. Thanks, Kathy. DJ.
I'm going to lower my hand here. Yeah, Kathy, that was really fantastic what you just said. That's really, I mean, you could write a book about that, what you just said. But I was going to say something else, and it's a little bit more complex maybe. So earlier, I can't remember when, but before the breakout rooms, we were talking about, I think it was a question, Bill, I'm not sure. I think wasn't there a question about what happens when the reflector or the listener isn't showing empathy? Was that it, Kara? Was that it? Yeah, and so I kind of wanted to go back to that, because I don't think that we can really make a judgment on whether or not someone else is feeling empathy. And I know that everyone's kind of said, well, you lean into it, and, you know, and some people actually like their bodies actually move closer to you, or, yeah, like, you know, oh, that you can tell they're really listening. But I'm not talking about those superficial kinds of things. I'm talking about true empathy. That I do believe that there are some caveats that happen in the empathy circle, that the reflection in itself is not necessarily empathy, in my opinion. And it's not really a requirement that somebody have empathy for me in an empathy circle, because they can reflect back exactly what I have said without having empathy for me, without even having understanding of me. You don't have to have understanding in order to reflect. There is a mimicry element to it. And that mimicry element can be very useful in times when you don't really feel close to the people that you're with, perhaps, or maybe you're distracted or whatever. So what I'm trying to say is that question of authenticity, I think, is really a very private kind of decision. And it goes back to intentionality. And so I without going on too much more, but I just wanted to give the example of today's empathy circle was so fabulous. It was like, you know, nirvana. It was like perfection. It was just amazing. Ruth is amazing. Anna's amazing. Kathy's amazing. I'm amazing. We're all amazing. But if we have another kind of situation where we're actually trying to problem solve something, or there's some kind of potential conflict, for some reason, that kind of amazingness isn't protected, because we get into that judgment and into that defensiveness that seems to be our go-to in the world today. So that's all I really have to say. Thank you for listening.
Sure, thanks. Any other comments that people like to chime in? Okay. All right, and I see, so we'll go around, I guess. Let's see if I'm handing it off. I'm sorry. Okay.
I'll take that ball.
Yeah, I'll hand it off to Kara.
Okay. So for our last question, we're going to do like 1 minute rounds per person, and we're going to go all the way around if I think we have time. So I'm going to go ahead and just call on people. I'm posting it currently in the chat. Okay, so what did you like about the training, and what will you be doing next with your empathy circles? And I'm going to start on my participant list and go through it. So let's go to Jonathan.
Well, I really I enjoyed last week's session. I felt that I was I was very receptive to the challenge that I was given. I really think that maybe that should be some sort of a adaptation of the challenges, because it was tough. It made me think, and I learned something, and it's going to stay with me. And I'm going to remind everyone that, and I'm going to ask Edwin for a comment, but I believe that ongoing next week or next Monday, we'll have regular cafes. And the question came up in our circle about, well, what are we going to do next? Well, maybe you could just attend the cafe next week, and something just that simple. Thank you.
Let's go to Kathy.
Okay. So I haven't done a training in a year. And so I felt rather loosey-goosey in this training. And I just was realizing I don't remember how profound the first training I did was. And so the next training, I want to remember what a profound experience this might be for the new people that are doing this. So I wasn't in touch with that this time around. I wish I would have been more in touch with that. That might have helped me not feel so, like, just go with the flow rather than just really be prepared. So, and what I'm doing next is continuing to push this out through the Peace Alliance. We have it in our Peace Movement news and events. And I'm going to push it out more on Facebook than I have been doing. invite more of my friends. I haven't really been focused on it because I've been too busy in my life. And so I'm emptying things out of my life so that I can do some more things. So that's it.
Brilliant. DJ.
This is my second training. So I had the participant and then training 1, and this is my training 2. So 3 times. I have to say it does get easier. It definitely gets easier. This was a lot easier for me. I feel like, oh, okay, I'm getting a handle on this a little bit. And I love the scripts that Edwin has. I just love those scripts. I just, because I'm an educator, you know, and, you know, it's so great to have it all written down. Like, you don't have to be, you know, like you were saying, Bill, you don't have to be brilliant. You know what I mean? Like, you can just read this script and it's going to work. And so thank you all for being here and going through this experience with me. And I hope to see you all again.
Linda.
The circle today was unique, and I loved it because when Dee dropped off, it was just 3 of us in the room. There was Sally and Jana and myself. And we said, okay, well, I did, because I do this. I said, let's just have a conversation and not worry about the reflecting and the time, but let's just have a conversation. And we got to talking about being a vegan, plant-based food, holistic medicine, or whatever. And so it was, you know, it can actually work in having a conversation with a group of people without the timer and whatever. So I really enjoyed that. And this whole process, I like the fact that it's a process. Like when I was training for to become a mediator, there's a process. It's not just helter skelter. And if you follow the process, it works. And so this process has taught me how to actually listen, pay attention and listen without, you know, getting ready to respond because I don't want the silence or whatever. And it's also teaching me how to be more conscious of the words that I use and not so paying so much attention to, am I going to say it right, or is this the right word, or am I going to pronounce it or whatever correctly? But it works. It just in general life. But the circles help you practice it, like Edwin said, build the muscle, so it just comes on automatically.
Yeah. Sally, I'll come to you. Do you want to go next?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of what Linda said. Because well, when Dee left and we were the 3 of us and we talked about you know, being vegan, and it kind of was not anymore in the empathy circle process. But what came to mind is that, like a potter's wheel, when you dump the clay on and everything is going which this way and that, and but you finally get it centered and perfect so you can make your pot. And at that point, when you're centered in the conversation, you no longer need the empathy circle because everyone feels safe. And it's a beautiful, you know, yeah. You make that pot, that beautiful pot.
Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah.
Wendy, we'll go to you next.
What I liked about the training was meeting new people, because each time the 3 times before that I've done this training, it's been different each time. I mean, the scripts are the same, but the different contributions from various trainers, trainees, and participants is always different. So it just goes deeper each time. And this second part, what we'll be doing next, trying to integrate learnings about listening into daily life and into organizations that I'm involved with. It is, I find, just such an important process, and I feel that various organizations could really, really benefit from that process. So thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Anne, we'll go to you next.
Thank you. For me, I think it's coming together with a group of people who we have some shared understanding and purpose and value in this empathy training, that we want to spread it. And to me, that kind of removes some of my isolation, because I'm not that often physically with people who I feel that I have a shared sense of purpose with, and I find that invaluable. And I kind of know many of you well enough to know that you're all working in your ways at making that happen, and I find that life enhancing. And what I will be doing next, one of the things I wanted to mention is that I've been asked to find some facilitators for an empathy cafe. Time and date to be confirmed, but probably at the time of this training, that's 10 a.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. in the UK, probably on the 11th and or the 12th of March, that's Saturday or Sunday. And it's an NVC, Nonviolent Communication, Empathic Europe event. And so if anybody's interested, I'd love you to come and be one of the facilitators, because I know that each and every one of you would be really great to be there doing it. Thank you.
Excellent. Alex, let's go to you next.
Sure. Just to piggyback off something that Kathy said, this is my first empathy facilitator training, and prior to this I'd only participated in 2 empathy circles, so the concept was reasonably new for me, and I have found it a really profound experience. Like, I have just got so much out of this. That's definitely the case, Kathy, and I hope that I can stay in touch with that as I go through other trainings. One thing that I've really appreciated about the trainings was how well organized they were. I can tell that like a lot goes into preparing, into delegating, into knowing who's going to do what next, into sticking with time. I just really value when our time is respected and things don't go over or they don't start late. Like, I think that requires a lot of coordination. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the emails and the links, and everything is there as I need it. So I really like that. Next steps for me, I'm really keen to join the visioning circle process for Edwin's next big project. And I want to keep in contact with empathy cafes. I've been to Jana and to Larry's cafe before. I'd love to come again. And yeah, I hope to join the next training too, as a trainee next time. So yeah, thank you.
Love that. All right, Bill, what you got?
Yeah. So I always love meeting new people, but also people I've seen before, watching their own process. The empathy circle sort of sets the frame, but then people take their own unique way forward. And that's what I really, really enjoy and value. And the bravery of people saying, yeah, empathy is important, and I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to learn about it. That's incredibly personally gratifying to me. What I'm going to do next is, I've been working on empathy in schools. It's what I've been doing in the past. I will continue to do that. I put my contact information in the chat if you're interested. And then also I'm working on an empathy game that incorporates theater games and things like that that can be downloaded for free all over the world. And the devil's in the details. And I'm working with a graphic artist who's also a very good editor. And but we're making progress. So hopefully within a month, we'll be able to, beta test that. So that's it. Thank you.
Beta testing in a month. All right, BJ, what you got?
Okay, what I can say is that for me, learning new things, making genuine connections, and getting support as needed. Like right now, what's next is I'm in a leadership program where we're going to do a service project. I'm on the health and wellness committee, and what we're going to do is we're going to do empathy listening circles in a high school. So thank you very much, Bill. Thank you very much, Bill. So there's always help out there for whatever project you're working on, and I'm grateful for that. In addition to that, just as you go through the process, you learn about different things that you haven't considered, like saying that diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace would be a win-win for all employers. So things like that. So those are the next step for me. And I love, love, love empathy listening circles. I'll leave it there.
Yes. All right, Dee.
There I am. Everything everybody said, me too. I really enjoyed this format because it's got that equanimity, that equality. You don't have one person manipulating your whole time. And I think that's very valuable in a lot of group situations. I really liked meeting like-minded individuals. I'm happy with our cohort. I think it was a great group for me. And where I'm going forward is I hope to be running an empathy cafe too. For my clients that are involved with the energy and Reiki healing. So thank you, everyone. That was really good.
Jana.
Well, I love empathy circles, and I've benefited personally tremendously from empathy circles. And about this training, I enjoyed that addition of the conflict resolution. That is exciting, and going forward, I think this will be a very valuable and invaluable tool for conflict resolution. And I echo what Dee said. I agree with everybody here. What people shared, really wonderful comments and enriching comments, and it's just wonderful to be part of this community. And in terms of what we're doing, Larry and I are doing this ethics and empathy circle. I'll put it here. Everybody's welcome. And going forward, I'd like to explore empathy and altruism. This is a hot topic for Edwin here. And I've suggested to Wendy, maybe we'll do a book club or something about ethics and about empathy and altruism. So yeah, we'll see where this goes. It's exciting. Thank you.
Jennifer.
Yeah, so I enjoyed the training, and I'm not really sure what's next for me. I hadn't given it much consideration other than I'm not going to be doing like a big commitment, but I just learned of this thing called empathy cafes today, which sounds like a drop-in kind of thing. So I'm happy to have a conversation about basically anything that's coming up in the future. I think everyone has my contact information. Personally, how I'm seeing that this could be integrated into my personal interests is that I would like to kind of simplify it, distill it even further, and bring it into the Web3 tech kind of NFT communities via Twitter Spaces. And Marianne Williamson is running for president again. She's announcing, I think, on the 4th. And I would like to, I told her I would volunteer to work on her campaign. I had some ideas for it, and she liked the tweet. So I am taking that to mean that she wants me to incorporate empathy circles into her campaign. So I'm not sure how I'm going to do it yet, but that's my thinking.
Kim, I will go and then I will send it to Edwin after I go before we pass to Anne for our closing. What did I get out of this particular training? I don't remember who said it already, but yes, it's the people. The training is so beautifully laid out. It's so beautifully structured and set up. And then all of these amazing human beings show up and make it magic. And that is what I always get out of these. It's my second time through. So the first time as a participant, I remember like earth shape moving changes. And I did not expect for that to happen a second time, and yet it did. So always do I find that to be true here. What's next? I will be taking empathy into my leadership training as a coach and then participating more and more into the community. I still have an ongoing once-a-month empathy date with ladies from my very first training years ago. And we get together every month like clockwork still. And I lean on to that will never stop in my life. Pass to Edwin, and then we'll give it to Anne.
Okay.
You forgot Ruth. You forgot Ruth.
Oh,
I miss Ruth.
go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, well, shall I go now?
Yes.
Yes, please.
So you're all probably falling asleep. And anyway, yeah, no, I just, yeah, this is such a good opportunity. Yeah, I'm a little bit tired, so I'm going to try and focus here. What I liked very much was all the different personalities and, you know, meeting people from other countries that I wouldn't normally meet. But all the connection between us, it doesn't really matter where we come from, you know, we just connect really well. Next steps, I'd love to have a monthly empathy group with yeah, people. But next steps, I'm offering an empathy cafe for a skills auction that's coming up, and a group of women that I meet regularly, they've agreed to let me kind of just demonstrate it with them. So yeah, that's my next steps, and maybe help out on one of the online things, who knows. Thank you.
Did I miss anyone else? No? Okay, now to Edwin and then Diane.
Okay, so for me, I just love
Sorry.
being with you all. It's like, especially in our circle, it's just there was such warmth and growth that was happening. It just sort of feeds my heart and soul. So very grateful for everyone taking part. And I also really enjoy the learning. You can just feel the learning happening and the growth happening to build a more empathic culture. So to be able to contribute to that just feels really good. And just to see the growth that happens with everyone towards that culture of empathy. Yeah, so and I was really excited about I've been talking for, I don't know, year or so about doing that empathy and conflict, the mediation circle. So finally got to test it out on you all. So really appreciate that you were able to, that you could take part with that. There was something was said about doing unstructured dialogue. The empathy circle, just as a added point here, you know, if you have the empathy circle is doing a few rounds with the empathy circle and then doing open discussion, it kind of sets a good tone for it. And it also becomes sort of a safety net too. Like if something happens, you start feeling hurt, not feeling heard, you can say, oh, would you give me a reflection on that? You know, while you're just having a normal conversation. So it becomes sort of, yeah, again, that metaphor of a safety net for maintaining that empathic way of being. In terms of next steps, I got a couple things here. I'm going to actually put this in to the chat. That's the link to next Saturday in this time slot. We're doing our conflict mediation, peace building, empathy cafe. We're doing that with a bunch of different co-sponsors. There's the Listening First Alliance, there's Kathy's Peace Alliance, and there's a couple other organizations that are co-hosting that. So we'll be here in this space. I put the link in there on LinkedIn, for hosting that. Right now, it's like 600 people have said they're interested in it. So it's usually just a tiny percentage that actually show up, but it's great if you want to come and practice your facilitation skills. If we have enough participants, you can facilitate a real empathy circle with new participants. So it's really good practice. So I hope you'll come to that. In the Saturday time slot going forward, we'll have other empathy cafes in the following weeks. We do that conflict cafe once a month or so. And let's see, we have next Friday, we have that visioning circle for the center, the Empathy Center in Santa Barbara. So I hope you'll come to that and kind of help create that organization and that space. And we may be doing it on Saturdays going forward as well, sort of a brainstorming for a while. We have the next training, I think, is going to be May 20th. It'll be starting. It's the week before that is the National Week of Conversation with, there's a national organizations, about 400 organizations. They do this National Week of Conversation for the United States, kind of trying to bridge divides. And as part of the conflict resolution circles, we'll be hosting that. So there's a whole, we'll be sending out, you should all be on the Facebook, not the Facebook, but the Google group email list. And so we'll be sending out notices for all of that. So I think that's it for, final next steps. So I'm really excited about the center. I mean, this is really it's really a chance to really move the empathy movement forward. And I hope you'll, all kind of get involved in one way of volunteering, or maybe eventually we'll have, paid empathy positions too, that we're going to work towards that. So that's it. Thanks, Kara.
And before I pass it to you, Larry, are you with us? Can you speak? I didn't call on you earlier. I see you, but I don't hear you. Tech challenges. I hate those.
How about now? Did that make a difference?
I hear you now. Yes, please share.
Wow. That was the longest reboot in my whole life, I think. I was like on a vacation. Welcome back. And I heard someone say, it's the people. That's it. It's the people. It's the connection. It's the aliveness within each of us. This is shared relationship. It's phenomenal. And it's overlooked in our worldly lives. We don't see the miracle of life. It's happening all around us. So, what am I doing here? 4-minute bio break is what I see on my schedule.
What went really well in this training, and what are you going to do next?
Okay, I'm thinking about doing some empathy circles next.
Okay.
That's it. It's the people. This is it. This is really, really cool. I love to live this way.
Thank you. Okay, and now it's officially you for closing.
Thank you very much. So first of all then, are there any trainers who've got any final comments? I think Edwin had maybe said some of his already.
Yeah, I've already
is
said
there
my
anybody
part.
else who has any final comments? And then we'll go back to Edwin if he's got anything else. Am I missing anybody? I can't see any trainers with their hands up. Edwin, did you have anything you want to add?
I said it all in my turn, so that was just for the next step. So that was pretty much it. Next, May 20th is probably the next training. We haven't created the sign-up page for that yet, but that's sort of in the work. So that's about, that's 10 weeks, about 10 weeks from now.
So for me, again, I'm saying, letting you know that there'll be an empathy cafe probably at the time of this training start on the 11th and the 12th of March. And I'm looking for facilitators to come along and be part of the cafe. So you'll be supported. You'll have a pre-brief session and a debrief afterwards. So please get in touch with me. posted my email address earlier. So unless anybody else has got a comment, I will do a resume of what we've done this final session. Where we held a final empathy circle with a focus on integrating our experiences and our learnings. And then we've harvested feedback about the benefits of the training that we've experienced. We also shared our intentions for any future empathy cafes we're holding and any things that we're planning to do to contribute to building a culture of empathy in the world. Now, the assignments, first of all, there's the evaluation form link that I've posted in the chat. And also, there will be a final empathy buddy call that Edwin will let us know what our pairings are for that. And a small request, if you could, to donate if possible, please. So, lastly, I'd invite you all once again to put a feeling that you have at the moment into the chat for us all to share before we leave. So I've got gratitude, happy, grateful, joy, appreciation, content, revelations, trust, rebooted, connected, comfort, connected again, fulfilled, and it's connected for me. Thank you, everybody. So finally, let's do a final jazz hands, please.
See you next week in the Empathy Cafe.
Yay.
Be
Yeah.
sure to come.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Keep
look
the
forward to
connection
seeing you all
going.
soon. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good week and
Bye,
Bye,
BJ.
Bye. Bio break,
Bio break.
4 minutes. Great.
Did your computer crash, Larry, or was that?
Yeah.
What? Huh, just blew up, huh?
Yeah, the computer stayed on and Zoom disappeared. And then it's like I couldn't get anything to work. So I had to hold the power button on, down until it finally turned off. And it just took forever to reboot. I don't know if it was doing an update or what.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got a new computer with SSD drive, so it's really fast now. It's pretty good.
Nice. Send me one.
Yeah, they're pretty cheap nowadays. But you were doing you're going to be you're doing the debrief part. Is that you got
so
on it? So I don't know if
just
you
about
have
all
the
back.
links and stuff. You need it or anything, or
I think I just posted it in the chat to call on everyone and ask how was their experience overall, and ask the questions I like, I wish, and what if.
Okay, great.
Kara, would you like to go?
Yes, sorry, I must knock the picture down on my head.
Sure,
I get too excited, I'm bugging. Okay, I like these circles. I like the training. I like that it was just as intense the first time round as the second time round, but in a completely different way. Like the first time I was really trying to show up and figure out how to do the sympathy circle thing. And now it was like, how do I show up and help somebody else figure out how to do the sympathy circle thing? So that was cool. I wish that we gave a little teaser about the behind the scenes on the last day, so that I may have come back faster to training had I known that there was a whole nother level to peel back. So I wish that had happened. And what if we just take over the world? I'm in. You guys in? Let's do this.
What if what?
What if we just take over the world?
Oh.
Count me in.
Yeah, please forgive me for my grant where that's what I did, a pilot project for high school students to reproduce throughout the world.
Okay, so Sally, would you like to answer the questions of how was this cohort overall? I like, I wish, and what if?
Well, I just really had a blast last week with the role playing. I wish that we could move ahead with the conflict resolution because it's more apropos to the situations I'm gonna be dealing with. And